Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We are here with Dr. Grace Liu. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Freddie. Such an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you on the show. As I was saying when we started, I was listening to you 2013, 2012, really, really early on in my health journey. And it was so incredibly insightful and inspirational. You were definitely one of the first people that I was following that was really talking about the microbiome before it was a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a podcast back then too. I was like way ahead of the curve before people even knew what podcasts were. We had a Gut Guardian podcast.
Yeah. And so why gut health? What drew you initially to the microbiome and the human the human community, which makes up all these diverse microbes in our gut?
When I first got into my acute health journey, I had to learn a lot, like a big up ramp in learning curve to heal myself because I came from traditional medicine. And then I met some really great mentors in the functional medicine space. And they kept telling me, Grace, you got to get into the microbiome space, get into microbiome topics. I was like, what? Like it was so immense back then and no one really understood it. But I was really lucky enough to get that heads up because it does link all aspects of longevity, our telomeres, centenarian lifestyles and health and their metrics, and biohacking, because it's really hard to biohack actually something we don't understand, a big black box of mystery. And they were right. Like it's really at the center of a lot of everything we think about for health, autoimmunity, cancer. Everyone's background is cancer now, so it's really a part of all of it. And I'm way beyond that actually now. Like I think microbiome health is super important, and there's ways to hack all of it, but we still have to look at other things like today. We started with the deep breathing exercise, you and I, and we're all energy, and that's part of the microbiome. But there's a whole other component to health, many components to health, and we can have disruptions anywhere, but there's magic and mystery, in trying to align all of it, I think.
Yeah. If we got on an elevator in New York City, tall building, let's say there's 30 floors to ride, and you were to tell us um, what your health crisis or your pain to power scenario looked like, what would that story be?
Oh, it would be probably more than 30 floors worth. Because it would involve like career change. I was super into pharmaceuticals. I was really good at handing them out as well as, talking to physicians to educate them and increase use, right? Utilization of generic to brand, let's say, I mean, brand to generic, and using, more protocol based, pharmaceuticals. But when I got damaged by pharmaceuticals, primarily, and actually the dental field too, because I had an implant that kind of triggered a lot of health problems, a dental implant, and then a set of antibiotics. Yeah, and then not really an implant, a soft implant, but a Mirena IUD, a really high dose progestin, fake contraceptive intrauterine device. My health went into like chronic fatigue.
Mm.
And it wasn't too unsimilar to a lot of long haul clients we have now. People who just have unknown fatigue for years and years. And I was really lucky to be able to get out of it. And it took like massive healing, like on many, many levels, maybe more than 30 levels even. And I didn't even have the magic tricks back then. So this was like back in 2008, 9, all the way to 12, 13, and 2012, 13. And I learned so much about functional and regenerative medicine. And back then, I didn't really know about peptides. No one did. But now with peptides, we're getting like healing in 10 times faster rates, like absolutely phenomenal faster rates. So, yeah, it's an interesting journey, but not dissimilar from what many others have gone through. You hit a bottom point, and then you have to figure out, what's going to work for your unique genetics, your unique toxins, and trauma, right, and other touch points. And
Yeah.
everyone's unique and different. Yeah, I don't have a prescription or a template for everybody. Although it might sound like I do sometimes, but it's not. Yeah, everyone's super customized. I believe we have about 88 different systems in our body. And once our human bodies are just so incredible and amazing. When you fill in enough of these systems, the rest will fix on its own. If you can fix the right number and the right combination, which are unique for everybody, and there's infinite numbers of combinations, right? The body will on its own fix the rest.
Hmm. It's beautiful. I hear you. I hear you. I understand what it's like to be considered an expert in an area. And for me, sometimes I feel myself like a little exhausted about I would consider myself like a technology enthusiast, a technologist, and I love the tech, I love the toys. And most importantly, today, I think it's a great way in for people to get
Yeah,
excited about health. It's a great door number one. You can open, you can get all excited about what we can do with red light and oxygen and hyperbarics and ozone. And I could go on and on,
yeah,
but there's so much more to the conversation. And I'd say today it's allowed me to really meet people where they're at when we start the conversation. But like you, I would just join with you and say there's so much more. There's so many regulatory systems, and we have to inspire and empower people to really know the body and know all that's involved, because without it, we're never going to get to this place of hyper personalized medicine and care, which I think we need to truly heal to a level of functionality where then the person can go kind of run on their own.
yeah. I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
You gotta start the
And so, did you want to add something to that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just people have different fears, so where you begin that conversation, it'll really be informed by what they have faith in and what they fear.
Yeah,
And unknown is, a big, big topic.
I know. I know. I want to talk about, I do want to stay on gut health today because I think it's so, as I said in the beginning, there's I think, what somebody tell me? There's millions and millions of podcasts today, let alone about health.
Yeah.
There's lots of products. There's lots of um, very intelligent people in the field who would be seen as an expert, you
Hmm.
know, and there's so much noise to sort through. Lord knows I've had seasons of this company and that company and things I love for the gut and things that have just been um, really hit or miss for me. I know there's a
Mm,
very popular company. We can name some companies. We don't have to name companies. There's a company out there that sells a test that's very highly uh, they have a great marketing budget. And
for
so they
sure.
test your gut and they
Mhm.
tell you the supplements that you need to heal. And there's an ad running. I'm getting targeted all the time now by this girl. She's like, I was so tired and bloated. And then I took this test and this company told me what I needed as far as supplements. And now I'm so much better. And
We get a lot of clients from rejects from that company.
yeah,
They-
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
they're-
everybody calls me and says, Freddie, I'm going to do this. And I say, my general rule of thumb is like when someone tells you the test to tell you what the problem is, and then they sell you the solution,
Mhm.
it's really it's challenging to separate that incentive model, just like it's challenging to separate an incentive model to just prescribe chemotherapy for cancer, right? There's a huge the bias is so profound, and the only thing I could say in full transparency is like I have a red light company I've worked with for 6 years. I love them. I know the warranty. I know it's good, and
Yeah.
that's the one I'm incentivized, right? So I have my own bias too, but how do we start to sort through some of the noise? And even a better question for you, because I want to give you an actual question, is where do people start when they want to understand the steps to improve, really make a dramatic improvement in their gut health?
It's like it's not unlike running a race, right? If you have a race, if you're competitive, you want to know, okay, what PR you need to get and where is your target? Like, is it a long race or a short race, a sprint, right? So that's the same with health. I feel like, what's your goal? If you don't really give a fuck, like, okay, you just want to feel better. All right, that's easy, right? But if your end game is like, okay, I want to live long enough to see my grandkids or my grandpuppy, okay, for fur baby, people, it's like, what's your goal? Like, do you want endless energy or do you just want double the energy? Okay. Right. So I go, it's easier to go from there. Like
Yes.
we have gold standards and it's well known because we have so many great microbiome studies. For me, I look at centenarian data. You can't go wrong with centenarian data. These people,
Okay.
terrible genetics, just like everybody, you move them to an urban setting, they're going to start dying like flies. And that's actually started to happen in some centenarian ecosystems because of their diets changing to modern urban eating, processed foods and things like that. But if we look at their centenarian microbiomes, they have the ABCs. And it's very similar to European microbiome studies. These people in Europe often have much less use of pesticides, glyphosate, antibiotics in their healthcare system. They're just a lot more practical. They're not big pharma based like US is based on pharma medicines and their protocols that they've created. So when I look at centenarian data, I'm looking at like, okay, what's the overall structure of the microbiome? What do we see, right? Well, we'll see a minimum of 13 to 20 keystone flora. And these are the same ones found in Europe. And if we find healthy individuals in the US, the same 13 to 19 are found in their microbiomes. So kind of like a wealth portfolio, there's diversity, there's abundance of these keystone leaders. They're basically conductors of the symphony. And centenarians, what they have abundance in for their bifidos is Bifidobacteria longum. So I make a probiotic and it's got the highest strength in the industry for potency of Bifidobacteria longum. And like the name suggests, it's for longevity. It's like 10 to 20 times stronger and more abundant in centenarian guts and those who are really, really healthy, like COVID free, let's say, symptom free and long haul free and cancer free, because Bifidobacteria longum is found to be very, very anti-cancer. And it's equivalent to even PD-1 inhibitor drugs when they look at animal studies without side effects. PD-1 inhibitor drugs will like cause pancreatic failure, liver failure, all organ failure, and increased even mortality. So when I'm looking at a microbiome, we generally don't really know what's going on. Each test can give like one aspect of the gut. None are perfect, but they're better than nothing. And I'm looking at trends. I'm looking at a pattern shifting to move it toward like a centenarian profile, a
Mm-hmm.
healthier profile. And some people feel great after just like one or two programs with us. I aim to go through 4 programs with people at least, or 8, depending on how long their condition's been lasting. Basically, the longer a condition's been lasting, the more damage in the gut. Basically, some people have restricted their diet; they're eating less and less and less, and that, in a way, is actually damaging the microbiome as well. It's depriving the keystone flora from really important fuel, and they die. They'll go more and more extinct. So we want to, it's about like resurrecting actually what's not there. And in Western guts, what study shows 1/3 of the native microflora are gone. They're literally extinct. So by taking a probiotic carefully, we can definitely resurrect what's not there. And fortunately, now we have a lot of different diverse probiotics on the market, which 20 years ago they didn't exist. So these are really important to bring that native rainforest back.
Yeah. Talk to me about the word carefully. To take a probiotic carefully. What do you mean by that?
So when depending on the damage in the gut, how permeable the gut is, and what's leaking out, what is the immune system attacking? Because for really ill people, I would say the most ill would be inflammatory bowel disease, because there's autoimmune attack on the very gut, the very area of the immune system we're trying to fix. Cancer and long haul. These are probably the 3 worst conditions I probably see regularly. There's a
Mm-hmm.
high degree of permeability and there's a high degree of attack on the gut and other areas. And in these cases, what the root issues are? Often heavy metals, compounded with mold, and compounded with different co-infections. So there's a root issue to these expressive conditions, right? So, um, and finding the root issue is really important, because you can chase trying to heal the microbiome, but the hierarchy of what's causing the root issue, it needs to be addressed, because you can't keep doing the protocols, like killing protocols, or even feeding the gut, fueling the gut. So depending on the amount of autoimmune attack going on, or just attack from the immune system, a lot of normal prebiotics we would use are going to cause flares. And even starches will cause flares, right? And even probiotics might cause flares, depending on what their immune system is attacking. And obviously, these are all not natural. I would say kind of wrong. It's unnatural, because when you look at centenarians, they can kind of eat everything. They eat everything. They eat a lot of starches, beans, and rice typically. They eat even gluten and dairy all day long sometimes, and they're completely fine. They're not launching autoimmune attack, right, to these normally, allergenic foods. And why is that? Well, because they have a great microbiome.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
really is a superpower. I drive home once in a while and I'm looking, I'll just look at traffic patterns, and of course, there's a Taco Bell by my house, and there's a McDonald's,
right.
and then there's a Chick-fil-A, and there's a line. There is a line of cars
They're
out.
addictive.
It's 5:30. I'm like, how are these people not going home and just having like full diarrhea blowouts? Like after this
Well,
food.
they probably are. They just, yeah, like don't show it on social media or something.
They might, yeah. Yeah, but when I was in college or even in high school, I do remember, that's where we went to lunch. We went to Wendy's, we went to Taco Bell, we went to Arby's. We got to pick, and it was a really great. I loved it because I worked with my dad in an engineering firm. We would go take a family lunch break together. We would see how much we could eat. But I remember every single time we would go to lunch.
Mhm.
I'm 16 or 17. And I never told anybody this, but I would be fighting to keep my head off the desk. I would be so tired, and I would just be like, oh, this is what after lunch feels like. It's normal, but the fatigue was oppressive. I would even go take a nap in the bathroom once in a while. But, no bowel issues, no digestive upset, but extreme fatigue that I would write off as normal. This is what lunch feels like.
Yeah, and you'd have like the soda, high fructose corn syrup. Yep.
Oh, I'd get a 20-piece nugget, a Big Mac, the soda, probably like some type of a frozen chocolate shake to bring back to work with me, and then
I
have like a high protein, right? And then have like a really big, yeah, have like a really big coffee with a bunch of synthetic creamers in it afterwards. It was basically like a sugar milkshake just to
Yeah.
stay awake.
Yeah, we used to go through gallons of, like, it used to be called Price Club, can't believe it's not butter, it was totally trans fats.
Yeah, wild.
I know.
Wild. So tell me about when you say testing, and you said you like to go through programs of people, 4-day programs. What sort of testing or diagnostic work do you like to see before drawing some sort of a direction or conclusion on what a person might need?
Right. So on our website, you'll see I actually also teach coaches and clinicians about how to approach the gut, and I'm faculty at different places, other institutions as well. And for gut testing, we have many ways to look at it. One I like is called metabolomic. So it's using urine and seeing what the metabolites of the microbiome are eliciting out. And first they're going to go through the bloodstream. They get filtered. Then they go through the kidneys, and we catch what's going through the kidneys and the urine. It's really super non-invasive. So you just, collect the urine in the morning, freeze it up, send it to Kansas. The next is stool. And with stool, you can do a variety of different breakdowns. You can culture it, or you can qPCR it using metagenomics, which is great. We have generation metagenomics, so we can kind of break down all the DNA of the flora itself, magnify it, amplify it, and see what's living there. And because species are so distinct, you can really go drill down to the species, which is really helpful. And that's a really great way. But it misses stuff. I've seen like a big gap between what we know for yeast and fungal overgrowth. That's why there's advantages of doing a urine test, because you'll see more of the fungal element. And I use a lower threshold. So, the labs may say, "Oh, this is normal." We don't go that way. We have a functional range, so it's much lower for health. We really shouldn't be having lots of fungi and mold or candida overgrowths going on. So when people get healthier and they reverse their autoimmune diseases or go into remission for cancer or heal whatever long haul or whatever the problem is, co-infections, we'll see the mold and fungal elements really go down to zero. That's our ultimate goal, not to have really any much detectable. But using a stool kit, it's really great for bacteria. We can see the bacterial changes. Now, bacteria are really interesting. It really is like a wild and native rainforest going on. Fungi are an amazing host for parasites and even H. pylori, Helicobacter pylori, and other bacteria. So it's hard to get rid of certain bacteria overgrowths, which we know are pathogenic, because they're living inside yeast. Does that kind of comprehend? And hopefully for the audience. So
Yeah, tell the audience more about that, the idea that that could live inside yeast.
we have drug classes like antibiotics is for bacteria. We have antifungals, which are for fungi. Well, it's hard to eradicate or lower a pathogenic burden, like say bacteria, like Helicobacter pylori. It's hard to lower it if it's living inside another life form, like a yeast. So that's what studies show. They live inside candida, and you won't be able to attack it. You won't be able to relinquish it out of the gut microbiome, and then it'll just keep creating havoc. And our protocols are really effective because we're doing concurrent protocols. And then really what is at the heart of a microbiome issue is what's missing. So there's a really fabulous book by Martin Blazier. It's called Missing Microbes. It really should be like required reading for everybody. Even what we think is pathogenic, our kind has really lived with things for millions of years, certain bacteria, and they still belong in the gut. And what we're missing is a lot of keystone flora. So when we're able to resurrect these, like I mentioned to you, when we have so many different systems, when we fill in enough, the body will take care of all the rest. So that's what's shown with keystone flora too. When we bring in enough of the keystone flora, many other species will pop back up because they're down to 0.0001% of the whole microbiome, but they'll come back, especially if they're fed properly with the right staging of prebiotics, not bringing in something too early, bringing in at the right time. So when we bring in enough of the keystone, the missing flora, everything else will kind of fix itself. And at the same time, we have to weed. There is usually, after antibiotic overuse in the healthcare systems, especially with pandemic, hyperhygiene, super sanitation, everyone's like cleaning excessively. We've lost a lot of, protective keystone flora. By bringing them back, everything else fills in. And so that's the same with H. pylori. When we can lower enough yeast, we're also actually concurrently lowering the H. pylori to a manageable level.
Mm-hmm.
And there's actually good and bad H. pylori. Good H. pylori is shown to be protective against cancers, adenocarcinoma, asthma, which I used to have, and many other conditions. And then the really kind of more carcinogenic H. pylori, as you know, is associated with esophagitis cancer, gastric cancer, and many other problems. But by having a healthy foundation of keystone flora, there's selection of actually the good H. pylori that will come out. Yeah, so there's a bit of,
Beautiful.
yeah. And depending on the testing, you have to look at it with like kind of the context of it. Yeah. And knowing that stool kits aren't going to show the yeast, even though it's going to be present. It's always 200% present.
So talk to me about the test. There's so many tests out there and so many different, again, marketing spins on, oh, this is the sequencing that you need to do to get a full picture. What test do you currently use, or what do you like?
There's always going to be new tests. I haven't really seen anything really blow my mind or anything. So I
Mm-hmm.
kind of just stick with foundational functional testing.
Mm-hmm.
I like DSL's, their GI map. It's not great for, again, looking at yeast. That's one of their big limitations. But they've really improved the inflammatory profile, like looking at eosinophils, EPX, looking at calprotectin, zonulin. Those are really great to track because they should really get better for people with the protocols. And it's really good to look at just the bacteria. Not that we're going to go and kill all the bacteria in there, but it's just good to map it out and see it improve. The red zone should go down. Any detectable methane or um, other flora, that are kind of considered pathogenic, H. pylori and others, kind of see them go down, and then see the growth of the keystones. So I really love their profile for the keystones. They don't look at species like bifidolongum. You have to use other testing to do that, like
Mm-hmm.
Vibrant Labs to kind of drill those down. But or
Mm-hmm.
other testing will probably come out again, like 16S testing, and they're pretty cheap too. But they don't give you the gut inflammatory markers the way that GI map does. So we should see those go down. And for us now, I like the GI map because so many people are immunocompromised. After having a lot of, gut problems, our immune system is the gut. 80-90% is the gut lining and the flora there. So after so much inflammation, there's an exhaustion in the immune system. And on the
Mm-hmm.
testing, everything's flat, very low instead of in a sweet zone. And what we should see is these come up. These values should come up. Not, and they may even go red for a while, high, but then they lower to an acceptable normal range. Everyone's really immunocompromised. I don't know if it's spike protein, and just the amount of stress people undergo, not seeing their friends, and that persists kind of, or they feel fear, seeing friends again, being social again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the
That's
main two tests. But I do a lot of subjective looking at things. So what ties into the gut function is the vagal nerve. And as you know, one of the best metrics for the vagal nerve, our nervous system, right, is HRV,
yeah.
which is easy to manipulate. Although for some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah, it's so interesting. I was just doing this again, I don't know what it is, but something knocked my HRV for 2 months, and normally mine's 70 to 90. It's
that's
it's
awesome,
pretty it's
Freddie.
pretty good. Yeah, I got a pretty good nervous system, and
Um,
it was whacked for a while, but in the last month I tried a new binder. Thing is,
yeah, yeah.
that's my one theory, so the binder was in the mix. I tried a cycle of Rapamune. Um, that's in the mix. And then I got COVID like 2 times back to back. And that was in the middle, and lots of airplane travel. But it's just starting to come back into the 40s and the 50s.
You don't have enough.
What?
You don't have enough bifido. That's the deciding point. How symptomatic people are to COVID.
Yeah, explain that to me. Why is bifido a factor in
Yeah, we
COVID?
have microbiome studies, and it's
Mm-hmm.
typically they'll link it to just one species, bifidos. Maybe one or two other species might be found now that are correlated, but it's Bifidobacteriolongum and other bifidos, and these are just hard to get to anchor and stick. It's such a great asset, but it's not fragile, but it does take a lot of FODMAPs to feed these, and a lot of antioxidants like pomegranate extract, pectin, green apple extracts. I love acai and pycnogenol. They just like feed Akkermansia and our bifidos really, really amazing.
Yeah. And is the bifido beneficial to your body's immune system response? Because is it a balancer? Is that the mechanism of action?
I'm not sure what the mechanism is. That's a really great point. It's just the immune system. Babies have it. They're supposed to get it from their mom. But if mom doesn't have it, so several studies from UC Davis have come out, Western breast milk just doesn't have bifidos much in it. And the moms are unhealthy as well, as you can imagine, gestational diabetes and obesity and chronic inflammation,
Yeah.
precancer states. Yeah.
Yeah. It's again, it's coming up again and again. This is the theme, the idea of this that we heal generations backwards and forwards when we truly do the work on the gut, the nervous system, the mind, the spirit, the body. And that's never made more sense to me, especially as we're looking at we're fostering forward the next generation. We're almost when we do it in this way, when we have a relatively clean terrain, we allow them to at least make their own mistakes, not carry
Yeah.
7 generations into the next, which a Polaroid of a Polaroid of a Polaroid, which Weston A. Price talked about a lot. The
Right.
copy of the copy of the copy is the degradation of the human genome. And for me, it's like look at the instances of chronic illness across the board, or autism, or we could go on with these lists of numbers that are just
In
skyrocketing.
our generation, we can change it like that,
Yeah.
as long as we persist on that and believe it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
Talk to me.
you know,
Do you have a mission within your platform when you, because that lights up fire me. Within our generation, we can change it. Let's talk about that a little bit.
absolutely, we can, and it probably starts with healing the earth, Mother Gaia, who's provided, just as you mentioned, like generations, 10, 14, 20 generations, if not millions of years of generations of resources and clean water for us. But now, in just a quick instance, right, the last 100 years of industrial pollution, we've managed to like completely mess up, the water, food, glyphosate rich, rainwater now on our organic crops and things. We've really decimated the earth in ways that, it's already in the sixth extinction, the sixth one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's us.
Yeah. So it's scary and empowering at the same time. I always use this example. I have this one slide of a because people ask me, a lot of consults I get are like, well, Freddie, what about, a tech? Do I need technology? Do I need these outside of the box methodologies? And I would say normally if we lived, 200 years ago, no, you don't. You don't need fancy stuff. But if we look at post-industrial revolution, 1979 to now, 15,000% increase in glyphosate in the food supply. So it's almost like you do need some sort of like your immune system's like your shield, right? Whatever I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fortify the shield. So when I do go out and I eat at a coffee shop and I know they have not done reverse osmosis on their water or whatever it is, that I'm
Yeah.
gonna be prepared to meet the world where it's at.
Yeah, I'm a fan of binders too. I didn't used to be a couple years ago. And I could just tell dramatically how different, just like you did recently, like adding it in.
Yeah. Yeah, my friend Jeff has this company called Scan, which has do you know Scan?
Oh, yes, I've heard Jeff's podcast. He's great. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah, so he came over to the house, and I've done HTMA, lots of toxicity tests. I've never, ever, ever, ever been high in aluminum, and
Mm.
mine was through the roof. And I was like, and then everybody at the house, we had a party over here, everybody's was off the charts. I was like, what is this with Austin, Texas, and aluminum? And
Oh, wow.
whatever you want to think about the narrative, that in
Yeah,
Texas, they're doing some type of weather thing where they're putting like aluminum flakes in the sky to like get a better radar fix. And it's documented on the government website. They'll make little announcements when they're doing a dusting. I was like, you just, your mind kind of goes, you're like, I wonder.
right, right, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I use a lot of psyllium. We need insoluble fiber, and we also need cooked beans. Beans have
Mm.
and whole grains. It's just like Western A Price. I used to be chapter leader for my little area in the Tri Valley area here in California.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and now the science is backing it up. The network of polysaccharides, they really act like binders, like we would use for charcoal clay or cholestyramine, let's say, or Welcol. They're like resin binders, and they pull all the fat soluble toxins and maybe other ones as well too. So that includes glyphosate, and many other ones, mycotoxins. Our flora, like Lactobacillus rhamnosus, this is also the highest in the industry. When people take a tablespoon a day, studies show that it's in the cell wall of the bacteria here, the bifidose and the lactose, but particularly Lactobacillus rhamnosus. They act like an ionic resin to pull mycotoxins, but also even heavy metals and others. So if we look at our ancestors, just a couple generations ago, they ate a lot of vegetables and fiber, a lot of, cook resistant starches, beans and rice, whole grain beans, whole grain rice. And this is the ancestral diet of centenarians. No wonder they're so healthy. They're getting daily pulling, binding every day, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have
Yeah.
all this glyphosate. We do need cooked beans. I've really upped my cooked beans intake, because especially canned beans, because cans, when you hyper, steam them and pressurize them, the fiber under that processing is even more networked. And so they have higher densities for binding the toxins, mycotoxins and mold and glyphosate. And plus you don't have to cook them. So canned is my way to go, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
miss beans, Grace. I really do. I will tell you there's a lot of people on this podcast that also have had a lot of people that have been through going through severe Lyme disease, severe black mold,
yeah.
mycotoxins.
You're in Austin. Everyone's going through mold. It's so fucking humid there.
It's big. Well, I had mine. I bought an apartment in Jersey, which was floor to ceiling black mold. Somebody just slapped
Oh,
up a fake wall over mold. So it was 6 months of, living in this apartment and really just added a very unique twist to my opportunity to better know the drainage pathways of the body. The, my solution for me, which one of the drivers of like, I guess if I had a magic wand to wipe away, it's always been joint pain, and it's not even joint pain; it's like tendon pain. If I fast for 5 days, Grace, I feel amazing. But there's only so many 5 day fasts I can do in a row. Not that it's a therapeutic, right? I don't throw that away, but to keep up with my life schedule, it's challenging to do that all the time. So for
yeah,
me, eliminating.
you don't want to be stressed doing a 5 day.
No, you want to be not doing work or answering your cell phone or posting on social media or doing a podcast.
Right.
But the elimination of,
Mhm.
like, if I went and eat beans, my arthritis goes through the roof. Same thing with like any type of a lectin, obviously gluten, dairy. So these things
Our
I've
flora,
removed.
they break down lectins and oxalates.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
so important for people going through mast cell activation, SIRS, mold, and co-infections. This is the keystone flora. When they first start it, one capsule is a lot. They can't do it. But once someone can take a few pinches every other day or every 3 or 4 days, and then they can ramp it up slowly and take actually a full capsule, they've turned around. Their whole gut now can digest so much more food, and diverse prebiotics and starches and other foods. But the key is to get to one capsule a day. People in the
Got it.
beginning will not. Carnivores, when they start this, they poop blood. Is that
Oh
normal?
my God.
It's fucking natural. Their gut is so broken. I'm like, oh my gosh, just, let's work together. Let's just get a few protocols in. Let's, do the proper mold protection. It's like taking asbestos out of a house, right? You got to protect everything. You don't like do
Mm-hmm.
it when the kids and dog are in the house. You got to first take them out, protect everybody. All the workers need to wear masks and eye and respiratory apparatus going in, and then you demolition the place, right? Very carefully, and then you can fix the house, right? But you have
Yeah.
to be careful as the mold's coming out. So it's very important to do like liver support, TUDCA if needed, right? The bile, protect the bile, a lot of glutathione. I use a lot of peptides. Lorazepam is one of the best peptides. People can buy it through Limitless, and they go to our website. We can share with them the VIP pass to get it because it's behind a firewall. But otherwise, it's Gut 15, GUT 15. But Limitless sells lorazepam. It's one of my favorite research labs, and their lorazepam is really clean. All their products are really clean. And
Tell me what lorazepam is.
is a peptide. It's not a human bioidentical peptide. It's made from another animal, actually, but it's been shown to help close the zonulin. And so it's just a superficial, amazing bionic band aid. It's not to be taken forever. But what it does is it'll seal and heal the gut temporarily. That means more food. Okay. If people are pooping blood or with anything or starches or beans. It just is a superficial band aid until the immune system heals and some of the
Mm,
bile toxins are taken off. The bile toxins are what's causing all this opening of the gut because
yep.
mercury and mold, they're growth factors for other candida and fungi. And these will go and infiltrate and just grow and make this the most permeable gut lining. And so if you have leaky gut, you also have leaky gonads, leaky testicles, leaky penis, leaky ovaries, leaky brain, leaky thyroid. All the women get and men get like thyroid nodules, but we can heal all that. These are from oxalates. They're calcifications from fungi and candida. But we have 5 oxalate degraders in here. We lose this after antibiotics or stress. And once they come back on board, they start to lower the oxalate count. Everyone has high oxalates. Again, we look at labs like the organic acid test from Mosaic. My goal is the lowest quintile of lab range, lowest quartile or quintile. So it's literally only 20% of the lab range, which is what William Shaw, the founder of that company, original founder of the company, Great Plains Labs, that's what he saw in normal, healthy people. But we don't see that
Mm.
really anymore. We don't see that anymore because everyone's got some mold picture or candida picture after a few antibiotics.
Yeah. Yeah. I had 3 years of oral doxy
Oh yeah, yeah. And if
straight.
they go to a traditional Lyme treatment, now they're on 2, 3 antibiotics for 2, 3 fucking years. Like, oh my God, did anyone give them fluconazole or some kind of antifungal or berberine? No. Well, why? Or a probiotic? No. So these Lyme docs are really doing a huge disservice, setting these people up for cancer, more co-infections, unrelenting yeast and mold.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my experience. It was always really hard to manage. And again, it's people had enough information to be dangerous. They knew parts of the story, but as an evolving field, and I don't know what right now, I think the CDC is saying 560,000 new Lyme diagnoses a year in the US.
It's pretty weaponized,
Yeah.
sadly,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
know.
times fault. We have ways. So when people have really good gut flora, like I've seen this in a lot of really healthy clients, our flora make amazing peptides. That's why this is the biggest peptide source I feel, our microbiome, because there's 100 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the peptides they make, they're anti-spirochete. That means they're
Mm-hmm.
anti-Lyme. But you have to
Mm-hmm.
feed them so they can make a critical threshold of concentration for us. And so 30 to 50 grams of fiber is really probably kind of the minimum. You probably know Kyle Kingsbury in Austin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we used to train at CSA, Combat Sport Academy. And he and his wife, they came to me and they were like, oh my God, Grace, like, I'm glad you're not promoting the potato starch bullshit, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I know. That was like for half a second before I read the studies fully. And they're like, yeah, we felt horrible on it. And they're like super healthy people,
Yeah.
he and his wife, and he's a former UFC, and UFC, they have to cut weight. They go through there's a new movie out called The Cut with my favorite Orlando Bloom, and they're going to go over the massive shit they go through to cut the weight. It's like
Mm.
unnatural and really health defying.
Mm-hmm.
And so no, in fighting, it's stressful. Of course, the microbiome is going to break a bit, right? Or you have a couple surgeries. He definitely had a couple like surgeries, like plate, twice. So he had surgeries, and every time someone goes in for a surgery, they're getting an IV antibiotic.
Yeah.
So you're wiping out all the microbiome, growing tons of yeast everywhere, out of every orifice, toenails, and everywhere. So he did our protocol. We did a little bit of weeding, fungal and parasite and bacterial. And then a lot of our probiotic, he was taking a tablespoon a day and then 30 to 50 grams of fiber, like inulin and psyllium and glucomannan and which is konjac root, and a mix of like other fibers like XOS, GOS, and all those good ones. And he told me, Grace, I feel so great. I stopped getting sick. I sleep like a baby, beautiful dreams. He's like, I wish I had this in my UFC fighting days. Everyone should be on it. So a lot of, the fighters I work with, they all go on this and then they feel it's just amazing. And it's, probably something about that culture, they're rolling on the mats for jiu-jitsu, and there's a lot of stuff growing on those mats. And they're not using like essential oils or natural things. It's more like bleach and gross stuff,
Yeah.
that so you're only selecting for the most toxic flora to remain there. And then it gets all over, and then they all get like ringworm and all kinds of bullshit. So, it's everything's connected. What's on our skin is in our gut. For women, what's in the vagina is also in the gut. What's in the gut is also in the vagina. And same with like sinuses, even eye ducts and ear, nose, throat, ear infections, or so everything's really connected. So I believe in tongue to tail terrain management. Yeah, we'll start with peptides in the nose because those are the safest. People don't react to them. So a really good one, because it's depressing not being able to eat, we do an antidepressant peptide called C-Lank, with or without C-Max. These are found in cerebrolysin, which probably people have heard of. It's really great for CTBIs, brain injuries. By the way, with any brain injury, we have to heal that concurrently. Otherwise, it's again just chasing the microbiome healing, because when the brain breaks, the gut breaks.
Yeah. My doctor, nurse practitioner, does infusions of Cerebro.
Yes.
And I've had great results with, and I was like, literally, you can feel your brainstem
Mhm.
like turning on and pulsing. I was like, what is this?
Mm, yes.
And I just got, this was last month. This is another, it was like the month of like failed biohacks. I got a hold of
You
injectables.
you learned about it. That's great.
I sure did. I got a hold of injectables, and day 4, this happened to me and my friend. Day 4, day 5, he was like, "Are you really achy?" I was like, I don't think so." He goes, "Dude, my whole body aches everywhere." And then he goes, then he's like, "I think I'm getting the flu." I was like, "Dude, it's a peptide. You're fine."
You're
Me,
like,
day 4,
oh, a wuss.
I shot it, and I'm telling you, an hour and a half later, I was on a podcast, and I started to shake, like cold, like fever, flu, like full spine started to ache. And I was down for 2-3 days. It was immediate. And both people told me, they're like, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's possible. But if I look up cerebrolysin, sudden onset influenza like symptoms is a counterindication. So what happened? What could have happened there?
Cerebral license from an animal. It's glandular. I don't really do glandulars with people until we clear the histamines and mast cell. And we don't do BPC
Mm,
before. There's a list of contraindications because these turn on immunity. And for mast cell people or those going through mold and or Lyme, they're already having really high mast cell activation. So BPC and TB4 will turn on mast cells, which is good for normal people, but
yeah.
not good for someone who's already hyper activated for mast cells.
So
You
both of us are doing a detox protocol for Lyme and molds. It's both of our histories. So we both had that very acute, sudden onset influenza. It was wild.
yeah, like if you happen to check my mycolab testing, you're going to see the antibodies that you make to mold. And the goal is to normalize those to a green zone because we're
Mm,
always going to be exposed to mold. Like it's in the forest, every time I go running, the forest where I go, there's, some mold, but it's not a problem for me. But when I was really ill, I didn't feel well. I'd get like mini asthma. Our key is like, we're not going to not be around antigens. The goal is not to react to them.
mm-hmm.
It's about training the immune system. It's the nervous system, but the immune system is the gut and the flora
Yes.
there. Yeah. And once that's trained, it all flips and turns. And also the key is not to live in it, not to be breathing it, 8 to 12 hours a day. That's
Yeah.
hard.
Audience question that I get a lot of times. People will say, "Freddie, I heard the podcast. I know mycotoxins. I know I have black mold. I know it's in the house. Um, I don't have an option. I do not have the money to move. I cannot get out." What would you tell to that person? Is it possible to get better in that environment?
We have a few clients. I'll tell you, it's really an uphill battle. But what you can do is you can ozone different rooms while you're out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
What really good mold renovators, remediators do is they lay a frisbee worth of vinegar in different areas to kill the spores
Mm-hmm.
because vinegar is volatile. We make acetic acid. Our flora have acetic acid. They make acetic acid. We get a layer of vinegar all over our our terrain. That's what keeps things sterile from fungi, virus, bacteria, mold. So we can do the same. They lay these trays of vinegar out. Other things people can do is they can diffuse essential oils like thieves oil, but not be
Mm-hmm.
in, when they're breathing it.
Mm-hmm.
And just make sure there's like air filters everywhere. But
Yeah.
that's not ideal, and cleaning out the HVAC. Everyone, we have clients like that's a minimum thing they can do is clean the HVAC out and they'll find, oh my God, tons of black mold or whatever mold.
Yeah. I've been running a test from got mold every. My house seems clean. I've tested twice, done the spore count, done the outdoor air, looked at the differential, didn't come up with anything negative, but I do have an ozone machine that I'll hit every 8 weeks when I'm not here. And
Yeah.
then I have 2 air doctors in the house. Um, the other
So
one, my friend's got one called IQ Air, which is like all these pounds of carbon. It's
that's,
really good.
all of them are great. Yeah. The worst is the mold inside the host.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So our goal is to do the protocols to lower that count. And
Mm-hmm.
we start with the sinuses. So C-Lank and C-Max, and then if there's tolerability to KPV, we don't inject it because usually that again will turn on histamines and mast cells. So, but we'll do it nasally. So that's basically topical. And KPV is anti-Marcons, it's anti-mold as well as anti-candida. It's antifungal and antibacterial, especially bacterial to staph, the Marcons. So we start to like change the biome here. And this is really important because this connects with the brain and it sends bidirectional messages to the gut. The sinus is
Beautiful.
really important. Yeah. KPV is anti-inflammatory. It's antiviral. Um, we have clients and me as well. I'll make a salve with it with maybe a few other peptides, any kind of, you know, um, wart or like rash or eczema or psoriasis, we can put it on topically. It'll just like magically heal it, regenerate it to normal. KPV is like really bomb. So we do it nasally and we'll do 2 to 3 months of it. And then we rotate different botanicals or argentin, which is silver colloidal, to start to lower that burden here. And then
Mm-hmm.
people can dab like a little probiotic once or twice a week. That will recolonize. So we're recolonizing, resurrecting, as well as weeding and seeding all at the same time. But not at the same time. You don't want to be killing and put the probiotic. It's just, separate by 2 hours and that'll be fine. But we have to
Yeah.
start tongue to toes to really change the biome. As if you can imagine, there's mold spores in mold people like all over their body, their
Mm-hmm.
meridians and lymph, and they can live there. They will live there. Every
Yeah.
breath, may have some as well. They're living there, and it's a matter of like changing that terrain. And then once the immune system comes back online, the immune system will take care of the rest. They're good at facial recognition. They'll find the invader and be able to safely eliminate it. But to bring it back online, there are some measures, that help to get people there. Yeah, if people tolerate, we do a little TA1, thymosin alpha 1.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that one maybe one out of 10, 2 out of 10 mold, Lyme, mast cell people won't tolerate that one, but most do. Most actually can do really well. And but the key is like getting in the flora again, because these make antimicrobial peptides. We call them AMPs. These peptides are what we really need long term. Yeah, and then people can turn the corner.
Beautiful. Grace, what, as we're talking about all these tools in the toolbox here and talking about taking different snapshots of the urine and the stool and the nasal passages, can people go through a program at the Gut Institute where this is laid out and tailored to some design?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have group programs that are really affordable, and then we have one-on-one, which is more hand-holding and more customized because there's time to go over exactly precisely what might be root issues.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe in like the 3 Bs, beliefs, do they have self-limiting beliefs? Are they kind of more open to limitless healing and what they can envision or manifest, right? And then there's the biome and biology. So it's easy to do the biology. The other two are, kind of trickier because, people have to trust and then go through like a protocol.
Yeah. And what would do you have, I know everybody's different, but I do like to have people understand just an approximation of the allocation of funds to go through like a program like this. How long would we could pick an avatar. Let's say we could say somebody with a chronic illness has been sick for a while is probably going to be different than somebody that just wants to improve their longevity aspects. Do you have an idea around those, like idea of an investment?
Yeah. So, I mean, depends on how deep people want to go. If they're looking for longevity, we'd spend a bit more on peptides actually and
Mm-hmm.
bioregulators. So that might be, depending on how deep people want to go, 300 to 500. Well, okay, there's no upward limit, 300 to 500 minimum, but upward, I've been on thousands of dollars of peptides, like given months to test different things,
Sure.
and like for human growth hormone secretox, you really have to kind of go through 6 months worth to kind of like see all the layers of shifts and changes as the foundations are relayed down. And same with all the other same with all the peptides, there's a time frame because we've had so much inflammation for so long as a species, so it just takes time to like unlayer all those. But yeah, that's the for peptides. But then when we're talking about supplements like probiotics or binders or, healing and protection and detox, those can be 250 to 500 a month, depending on, what time frame and the protocol is. And then that's not even talking about the biohacking. I really recommend hyperbaric oxygen and access to sauna. Some people already have sauna from their gym. As long as there's no mold there, okay, that's okay. It doesn't have to be infrared, just plain sauna is also great as well. It doesn't have to be super fancy. But yeah, depending on how fast people want to heal, yeah, I'd add in whole body PMF, pulse electron, depending on what their HRV is, maybe buy a biomat or other like mats. Like I love the PMF mats, like Centropics and others.
Hmm.
You have all different ways to kind of bring the healing so much faster, but they do add up. Like all these devices
Oh
you
yeah.
own, it's like 5-10K. I've been there, but they're so helpful, and
What about testing?
it'll save time on everything else. Testing every 2 months, it's good to have some blood and stool kit testing for sure. We do a baseline ode on everybody, but I don't really run these again because it takes forever to fix an organic acid. It really shows so much, and it's a cumulative, net and test. It kind of adds everything up, right? So it takes a long time to heal an organic acid, but once we see it heal, like in 6 to 12 months, that's great. That's also when most chronic conditions are gone by then. Yeah,
Yeah.
the ode is harder to heal, but it gives a good snapshot.
Yeah. I listen to you say all this and I'm reminded, this is probably for the health enthusiasts out there. This would be the work to do before you bought a $3,000 red light panel or the $10,000 PEMF device. That it's probably smart to work with this conversation between the internal microbes and the outside world, which is with you every day, all day, as opposed to, the 20 to 30-minute treatment. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Or you can do it concurrently. I mean, they're like
Mm-hmm.
our actual assistant, not a virtual assistant. Like they are our allies. They're as many cells as we are. We're 100 trillion cells, nucleated and non-nucleated cells. They are our microbiome is weighs as much as our brain almost, and they are 100 trillion cells. Yeah, you absolutely can't ignore them. And I think that's why people are such fans of carnivore and others, because they've ignored it. And they don't, they just think, oh, I'm never going to eat kale again, another leaf of kale. But it's really because they don't have oxalate degraders in their gut. There's way too much mold, way too much Lyme, way too many parasites, way too much SIBO, and it's overwhelming for people who don't know what they're doing, or they're working with a practitioner where there's just like failure around every bend because they're not really getting the root issue. And early in my career, I mean, that's what I was doing. People weren't getting better, and I was really like frustrated because I didn't see the whole body burden for people. So, checking out what the heavy metals are, checking out what the mold burden is. And, a lot of people they have really good SNPs and, genetic variants. They don't detox fully. So you really do have to we didn't used to provocate for mold. We used to provocate for heavy metals, as you know, if you did HTMA hair, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you kind of have to provocate for everything now, because there are a lot of people, they look fine and the testing looks fine, but if they're having so many health issues or they can't tolerate certain peptides, it's unnatural. There's something going on. And usually it's because there's no provocation of the toxin we're trying to find. It's so deep in the layers. You got to provocate for even a week and then measure
Mm-hmm.
with no binders. So we'll do
Yep.
like standard protocol, like glutathione 1 gram a day, sauna every day for a whole week every day, and then check no binders, no charcoal clay, nothing, no cholestyramine, no binders at all, and then go and check what's coming out.
I've had people get a positive Lyme doing sauna every day a week after testing negative with a Vibrant. That after a week in the sauna, they've had a positive result with spirochetes. It was really interesting. I've seen that come up a couple times.
Everyone's got spirochetes.
Yeah, right.
Everyone's got Epstein-Barr. Everyone's got CMV. And the sad thing is, because of spike and whatever is causing so much immunosuppression, they're not expressing it in ways that we can measure. So I found a couple of spike studies. They were long haul, and they had Epstein-Barr, but it wasn't in the normal tissue reservoir we would test, like
Mm-hmm.
serum for antibodies or antigen. They were somewhere else, but still affecting the system. It's like mold, or okay, the best analogy is like a bee sting allergy. First couple times people have bee sting allergies, they don't have much of reaction, right? But by like, let's say fifth or sixth, it's getting to anaphylactic lethal levels,
Mm-hmm.
where now like each exposure they get more and more throat swelling, more and more lip swelling, more and more throat closure, where you require an EpiPen, right? But the first couple times, nothing. So that's the same with mold. We have to heal the immunoglobulins, the response to the toxic antigen, whether it's bee venom or a mold. Because even though you're not around mold a lot, but each time, let's say you get re-triggered at a really high it's highly exacerbated, you're just getting more and more lethal. Your body's getting hyper alert. That's not going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the key is the nervous system. We heal a lot of people actually with bee sting allergies, lethal food allergies and stuff. Just 1 or 2 months of protocols. And I didn't even have peptides back then. But the key again is, why is the immune system hyper alert? It's usually because they're missing these flora. It's to bring these back in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll calm it. Yeah, because we're
Yeah.
going to always be exposed to mold. We're always going to be exposed to different antigens, gluten or dairy in food or whatever. And the key is just not having that expression.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to celebrate everything you've said. We're on exactly the same page. I'm reinvigorated every time I talk about gut and the microbes. I'm like, it's a focus, but man, it's like the biggest base of the pyramid in the body. It just really is.
Exactly. Biggest space in the pyramid. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Yeah. I have so many thoughts that I want to go into. I want to keep it at an hour, and I want to have you back on because there's so many. I want to also invite people to write in questions when you hear this podcast. Please submit questions. You can DM, you can go to beautifullybroken.world. You can DM on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. We'll put this everywhere. And we'll definitely do a round two, only if you're up for that, Grace.
Oh, I think it'd be fun. I love like problem solving with people. Like,
I would love to do some testing with you guys, and I'm happy to transparently talk about my my results, both good or bad, or however horrendous we find them, on the episode. So we'll make time for that. And one thing I want to add in is that this piece we've touched on, but we haven't gone deep, is this idea of vagus nerve, the
yeah,
mind. I find that for me, like the limbic loop,
yeah,
when I wake up and do have a response, if I travel somewhere weird and I have a weird symptom, or I know I'm in black mold and I can't get out, I'm at a conference at a hotel room.
right.
If I can just take that thought and I
Hmm.
can just set it to the side or just a little bit to the back and
Right.
not let it overwhelm my brain with fear. It's such a quick turnaround. Like what used to set me back for 2 months might be a day and a half, 48 hours, and I'm
Oh,
good. And that was never the case. And it's that limbic system telling me that this is a level 10 threat. And I'm knowing I've worked through it 100 times before and I'm going to be okay. Just that in me writing it out before I go to bed, it's magic. It absolutely works.
you hit on it. Yeah, it's our mind. We are really powerful to manifest anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, faith is a powerful tool.
Yeah, it is. So Grace, the Beautifully Broken podcast, this idea that we're using these times we fall down as a catalyst for growth. What does it mean to you to be beautifully broken?
Oh, one of my good guy friends, he wrote a song. Uh, it was called "Life Will Break You," and life is messy. It's beautifully broken. Everyone. There's no, if they're not sharing it, it's probably because they're hiding it, right? And I feel sorry for them. Like they have to spend. It's exhausting, to spend all that energy trying to hide something, and that's life, and that's living. So I try to embrace more and more of it. It's sometimes a challenge, So, but I feel liberated the more and more I do it, and
Yeah,
my gut feels better.
beautiful. And then if you had a magic wand, you can tune in all the iPhones of the world into channel Dr. Grace. and you had a minute to talk to the people of the planet right now, what would you say to the people of planet Earth at this time
Oh,
when we're alive?
planet Earth. Yes, we hope to like support planet Earth, and if we can help to support her in any way, let us know, by cutting back on pollution, using our resources the best way without exhausting them. How do we clean up the earth now that it has this saturation of different toxins that don't really biodegrade, the industrial mercury and arsenic, lead, and high concentrations of petrol pollutants and plastics and all the plastics and microplastics and glyphosate that is just eroding everything. So yeah, how we can show our gratitude, that would be just beautiful. And if we could all band together for this, that would just be amazing.
Yeah, I love it. And Dr. Grace, tell us one more time where people can find you and your information and all the supplements. What website?
We are at thegutinstitute.com. Man, reach out anytime. You can call us or email us, info@thegutinstitute. We'd be so happy for you to try our gut reset or other programs to heal. And hopefully everyone can feel they're optimal and be able to live their passions and do all the things that they really love and long for in their heart.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you for being a guest on the Beautifully Broken podcast. It was my treat. Thank you, Grace.
You're amazing, Freddie. Thank you so much for having me on. What a sacred
Yes.
honor. Thank you. Thank you.
Big love.